King Lear's personality included laziness, superficiality, stubbornness, and eventually caring. Right in the beginning of the story, Lear is splitting his kingdom up amongst his 3 daughters so he did not have to rule but still hold the esteem and prestige of a king, living in luxury between his daughters with 100 knights as followers. To do so, he even had a flattery contest amongst his daughters. He even says, "Which of my daughters shall we say doth love us most?" And his superficiality caused him to banish Cordelia, who refused to slander him in lies. Later on, when Lear is kicked out of both Goneril and Regan's castles because of his refusal to comply, the fool suggested they head back, as holy court water in a dry house is better than this rainwater out a door. In response, Lear angrily refuses. Rumble, thy bellyful, spit fire, spout rain. In the end, Lear prefers to go to prison with Cordelia as well, showing optimism and no longer putting up a fight, perhaps another aspect of his laziness or showing that he cares about Cordelia. For the bulk of the play, Lear is either angry or insane. It all starts when he's kicked out of his daughters' homes, and due to their lack of cooperation and respect, he curses them in anger and frustration. After some self-pity, his insanity overtakes him. He holds a trial for his daughters, who are being judged by poor Tom the Fool, a madman and court jester, or his witty conscience. He even calls them robed men of justice, and Tom a noble philosopher. This insanity even causes him to flee from Cordelia's servants when they attempt to bring him to safety. His insanity is calmed when he is reunited with Cordelia, but comes back again in the form of grief and madness when she is murdered. Besides being insane and mentally unfit to be making decisions, Lear is not the brightest guy. His superficially especially gets him when he's splitting up his kingdom. Because Cordelia doesn't believe in false flattery, she refuses to do so, and he banishes her and Kent, who defended her. She was even her favorite before, he says. "I love you most and thought to set my rest on her kind nursery, hence and void my sight." Among the people who actually cared for Lear, he banishes the most important, surrounding himself with liars. Even in insanity later on, when he meets up with Cordelia's messengers, he flees from his own saviors, though he does seem to believe that they are there to imprison him. Lear really only has 2 aspects of humor in him, when he's with the fool and when he's insane. He jokes around with the fool, saying, "Now, my pretty knave," while the fool insults him in all sorts of ways. On the other hand, insanity makes him do strange things, such as hold a trial against his daughters in the company of the madman. His elementary responses to Cordelia's messengers, such as "come and catch me," are quite amusing. King Lear is, well, a king. He really has no one to be loyal to, as everyone else should be loyal to him. He has the land, the power, and the people, and everyone is respectful and loyal to him until he loses it. However, he should have some loyalty at least to his kin and those faithful to him, who are in fact the people he betrays and banishes in the case of Cordelia and Kent, his most loved and genuine daughter, and his most faithful servant. His older daughters even expressed this disloyalty to Cordelia and Kent. One says, "He always loved our sister the most, and with what poor judgment he hath now cast her off." The other, in response to Kent, says, "Such unconstant starts are we like to have from him as of Kent's banishment." Lear doesn't have many strengths at all. He may have, as a king prior to splitting up his kingdom, but after he has no land and no followers, it all falls apart. The act of splitting his kingdom is one of pure laziness. He'll still hold the position, but not the responsibilities. He says, "In 3-year kingdom, and 'tis our fast intent to shake all cares and business from our age, conferring them to younger strengths." Another weakness of his is his stubbornness. He refuses to comply with either Regan nor Goneril, exclaiming, "Return to her, and 50 men dismissed." Never. His superficiality, finally, is one of his biggest downfalls. He prefers things as they appear and not really as they are, thus forcing him in a situation between Regan and Goneril, who never really love him. Right from the start, King Lear banishes Cordelia for her refusal to tell him that she loves him more than he actually does, and that causes him to have to split his land between Regan and Goneril. However, Regan and Goneril never really love him, so when he tries to stay with them, they refuse to let him stay and try to bargain the number of followers he has from 100 to 50 to 25 to none at all. This angers Lear, and he storms out. In response, he curses out his older daughters in the storm, calling them unnatural hags, and even holds a mock trial with Tom and the fool presiding. Later, when he meets Edgar and Gloucester, Cordelia's messengers come by and try to take him back to Cordelia, but in response, he runs away, saying, "Come, as you get it, you shall get it by running." Once reunited with Cordelia, he's happy, and even when they're taken as prisoners of war, he takes it with optimism, saying that at least he could spend that time with Cordelia. However, this happiness is short-lived, as when Cordelia dies, he dies of grief as well. Besides initially planning to split his kingdom off into 3 and marry off Cordelia, the bulk of the story is how Lear acts on his emotions. Hence, Lear doesn't have many goals or objectives. His insanity also helps him in his aimlessness. His resolve to do anything is so weak that by the end he's even willing to go to prison with Cordelia, and when he no longer has that, he dies in grief. When he's kicked out of Goneril and Regan's castle, his unresolved to do anything is shown when he says, "Here I stand your slave, a poor, infirm, weak, and despised old man." In the end, Lear is so grief-stricken from Cordelia's death that he dies as well. He even says, "Why should a horse, a dog, a rat have life, and thou no breath at all?"